Well, my friends, it is the January 14th, 2021 version of the Remodelers on the Rise live show. And we're going to have a little bit of just a nice variety pack of topics today. I did indeed 5P today, which means proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I have my topics all ready to rock. But what's always fun about the Remodelers on the Rise live show is you never quite know what you're going to get, because you guys in the comments of you watching live and your likes and some of your feedback can take the show in a different direction. Could be a new topic that I hadn't even thought of. So I love your questions. I love your topics. I even applaud when I see them come through. So we are going to get rocking and get rolling. You do see, if you're watching the video, the thing down at the bottom, it says, why not give it a try for $1? And then it says remodelersautopilot.com. You should check that out. All right, so the first thing on the old list today, it says nicer clothes, first impressions, and little things. Nicer clothes, first impressions, and little things. You might be thinking to yourself, nicer clothes? Are you talking about you, Kyle? No, I got my just typical uniform of a nice little zip up. Most of the time it's a polo collared shirt, but now that it's getting a little chillier, I a lot of times wear these. I always wear my hats. So certainly we're not talking about me when we're talking about nicer clothes, but I joined a meeting with one of my clients at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time this morning. And I said, whoa, hey, mister, aren't you looking sharp? The reason being, a lot of times I see this client maybe in a hoodie, just in kind of a t-shirt. And today we got a nice little button up and some khakis. And I thought, hey, what's going on there? And he said, I've got a few new client appointments today. And I've been trying to present myself a little bit more professionally, especially when I'm meeting somebody new or when I'm presenting a proposal. And I thought, you're smart. That's a smart thought. Running a successful remodeling business is about doing a lot of little things right. A lot of little things right. And we also know that the first impression that you make with somebody goes a long ways. This client of mine has been working very hard to become more and more professional in their approach, in their design build approach, in what they're charging, in stepping fully out of the field and having a team around him. Everything they're putting together in their sales and their marketing and their communications has been elevated several levels up from where they were a few years ago. And another little thing he's doing is he realizes when he shows up at a new appointment in kind of grubby clothes and not not professional clothes, or coming like he's coming straight from a job site, that's a perception that a new homeowner or a new prospect is going to be making. So I'm not saying we got to go, and I think in Michael Stone's book, he talks about wearing a suit and tie. It's got to be authentic. It still has to feel like you, but making sure that you're looking sharp, you're looking well put together, especially when you're making a first impression, is smart. That's all I got to say about that. Getting spiffy with the graphics. Somebody's impressed with the old Remodelers on the Rise live. We made that a little bit bigger so that people can see it. Yeah, we got some good graphics. Heather says the clothes make a big difference. Heather, you guys are a great example of that. Just from seeing your marketing and seeing photos of you guys at home shows. There was a nice picture of, I remember a nice white collared button down. It's got your logo and Mike right on the I was going to say right on the breast. That's kind of where it is, right? Like this is that area of the shirt. I don't know. Sounds naughty when I say that, but it's just like the breast pocket. I think that's what it's called. And then he had a nice little tie. He was looking sharp. He looks way different. And I think that was at the home shows. You guys just look different than anybody else. It is professional. Branding and making that look sharp and just, yeah, you guys know what I'm saying there. And it's just a good reminder. Just say chest. Okay, the chest pocket. Heather says that's right. It is called the breast pocket. You guys, why you gotta make me feel bad about using that phrase? Okay, moving on to the next one. It says strategy. Strategy. Do I hire? Thinking about adding a new position. Where's the bottleneck? These are questions that remodelers who are busy, like a lot of you are. Hang on, I had another comment. Dressing yourself a little better than normal carries a lot of weight. There we have it, folks. If you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can give approval so that I can see who exactly are making these comments. John Clark, I see you there. Chris, nice seeing you there. He's talking about dressing yourself a little bit better. I remember meeting Chris at IBS last year. He was looking sharp, and when you make a first impression, I don't know, first impressions matter. So cool. The next one, strategy, hire, new position. Where's the bottleneck? As you're evaluating this difficult thing of my sales are really strong, my backlog of work is really getting out there, is it time for me to hire? Is it time for me to figure out ways that maybe things that we were doing in-house and we're going to subcontract and use trade partners more? That way we can, even with the same team that we have, can increase the amount of production we're able to cover. Other times the conversation might be around, we need to hire a new lead carpenter. The trajectory of the amount of sales that we're receiving and the level of us being able to produce it is quite off. And if we were able to produce a little bit more, our backlog would still be solid, but not crazy substantial. Okay, these are all things to consider. Are you wanting to grow? Are you wanting to grow? At the on the Remodelers Autopilot Ask Kyle Anything Zoom call yesterday, one of my Autopilot clients was talking about the immense number of leads that they're receiving and how do I turn this down? And one of the other guys on the call said, well, why don't you grow? If you've got this opportunity, why don't you grow? And the gentleman answered and said, I'm in a sweet spot right now. He's been in business a while. He's grown higher. He's been lower. He knows kind of where he's at is a really profitable sweet spot. And it's also a sweet spot from a standpoint of his overall stress level and workload. He's thought through the strategy and he likes the level of business that he's at. It's a sweet spot. There's so many things to consider. This conversation with one of my other clients this morning that sparked me wanting to talk about this. Her backlog is through July and she's got 7 projects in design and development. So that July is about to move out further. Now, she can just kind of continue to roll with the team that she has on the production side, or she can work to add more production help so that they can eat into this work quicker. And her monthly amount that she's able to produce might go from $100,000 a month up to $150,000 a month. She's got options there. In her case, she's eager to grow. She's got plans to grow. So in her case, when she evaluates this, she wants to take a pretty active, go on the offense position and really bulk up the production side. There's so many different ways to approach this, to be thinking about it. There's a lot of strategy to consider. My big thing is there's not one right answer, and we've got to be evaluating where our bottlenecks are, where we're wanting to take our business in the future. The other thing that comes into play here are new positions. I just got off the phone with a longtime client of mine, and we're pretty fired up. He's fired up. I'm fired up because there's a new position that we're creating in the business of an estimator / project manager. We're looking at very closely taking somebody that his lead carpenter out in the field, who's getting up there in age, who's kind of interested in sliding into this role. We think he's going to be a good fit. And we're trying to figure out the timing of that. We feel like there needs to be 2 carpenters hired before we slide this person into this new role. So we put the plan together, right? But there's a lot of thought that goes into that. Strategy. Be purposeful and thoughtful with your strategy. And when you're staying on top of that, when you're asking these questions, where's our bottleneck? How's our sales and production? Are they lining up? Do we just want to keep building a backlog? Where's my sweet spot? There's a lot of things to consider. It can be overwhelming to kind of consider them. There's a lot of moving targets. If we're thinking about it today might be different the next week, but there's decisions that we can work towards. There's steps we can take. So if somebody has questions about that, it's probably a topic that's better when we're talking live versus via comments. But my main thought with this part of Remodelers on the Rise is simply spend time thinking about strategy. And hopefully, the way that I just shared a bunch of different examples of that can give you can spark some ideas there. All right. So I had a flurry of comments right there at the start. I will just pause and say, what questions do you all have? Or for my Southern audience, what questions do y'all have? Because I try to make this show enjoyable and personalized for all of you. Just the kind of host that I am. Okay, next one I just wanted to touch on and remind ourselves of is you had goals, you still have goals for this upcoming year. When you select one of the goals that are in your crosshairs that you're going to start working on, please keep it simple. And one of the ways that you can keep it simple is to figure out the next right thing and the next action step that you can work on, and make that action step SMART. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So if you are in the process of what I just described, of needing to hire 2 carpenters and sliding your lead carpenter into the project manager role, there's several action steps underneath that. But one of them might be, we need to get our job posting for our carpenter fine-tuned and posted by January 23rd, 2021. And you might even put the specific person's name who's responsible for that in front of it. And what I just described there has a deadline, so it's time-bound. It's attainable and realistic. It gives us about a week to do it. It's measurable. We'll know if it happens or not. And it's specific. I know what we're talking about. A lot of times I go from specific to time-bound. I did it backwards there, but I think you're following me. So it's just a reminder of the value and importance of identifying what that next action is and making it SMART. When it doesn't have a time commitment to it, it's going to leak. It's going to just continue on. It's going to take you longer to achieve it. When you can't measure it, you can't have any accountability for yourself or somebody in your team that's responsible. I was going to say get good, but I don't think that's proper English. But I'm saying it. Get good at making SMART goals. Please and thank you. Good. Anybody have any comments? Any comments, please? Questions that you have. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep on cruising on this nice little variety-packed show. This just simply says what gets measured gets improved. Kind of, I've heard you say that. Yeah. If you keep following my work, you'll hear me say it 2 weeks from now and 3 months from now, and also in 2023. It's one of my phrases. Deal with it. And we got to be reminded of it. What gets measured gets improved. And the one thing there's a lot of different ways you can go about that, but the one that I just wanted to zero in on is this phrase called cycle time. Where did I get this phrase called cycle time? I got it from my man, Bob Burnside, with Fireside Home Construction. One of my longest time clients, been with me for a long time. Great builder and remodeler here in Michigan. Hat tip to you, Bob. Bob's still part of one of my mastermind groups. And I miss working with him one-on-one. He's an entertaining gentleman. And I use that term loosely. That's funny. Cycle time. Bob's talking always about cycle time. One example of cycle time would be from the time that a project development agreement is signed to the time that you have that contract signed. That could be an example of cycle time. The time that you sign that project development agreement and the time that you present your first design or scope of work to them. If we can start measuring these different pieces of an important part of, let's say, our sales process, if we're paying attention to that, it's going to improve. What gets measured gets improved. How long, on average, this past year, did it take you to go from that initial meeting to contract signing? There's so many ways that we can reduce cycle time. And one of the best ways to do it is just start measuring it. Start paying attention to that. That helps. Make sure you have self-imposed deadlines. If you're leaving an appointment and you don't have that next appointment set up, you should work on that. I was about to say, shame on you, but we have enough shame in our lives. We don't need to add to that, Kyle. But you need to work on that. Always have that next meeting already booked. Never say, well, I'll get back to you mid next week. Because you and I both know, if you're anything like me, An open-ended action step like that is going to linger, and cycle time is going to increase. Give yourself self-imposed deadlines. What gets measured gets improved. Okay, we're humming along here. Why were you guys all commenting at the start when I was talking? This is what happens. I'm talking about clothes and like the chest pocket. I'll use the proper phrase, the chest pocket, and you guys are all lighting up like, oh yeah, boom, 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 boom. And then you get all quiet because I start talking about serious stuff. I start talking about things like, well, first, sign up for Remodelers Autopilot. And then I start talking about strategy. And that was an impassioned conversation about strategy that hopefully made you think. Talk about SMART goals. Talk about what gets measured, gets improved in cycle time. And you guys get all quiet. No open-ended meetings. That's right, Michael. When a meeting is concluded and there's next steps to take, we need to book that next meeting. It is incredibly helpful. If you're not doing that right now and you start doing it, you're going to love it. Channeling your inner Brenny Brown today. Bailey. Oh, good. I'm glad Bailey said that because I have no idea who Brenny Brown is. Should I know who Brenny Brown is? Brenny Brown. She is an American professor. And she is a lecturer, author, and podcast host. She's 55 years old, married to Steve Alley. You're going to have to give me more details on that, Bailey. I do not know her. But if that's a good thing, that's fine. That cycle time, the clients also love a structured approach. I'm going to read that a second time. The clients also love a structured approach. Kyle, all they care about is price. No, they don't. It's like number 6. What they really want, because they haven't gone through the remodeling process very often, and they are a little confused because they watch HGTV. We love HGTV because it gets them all excited about remodeling, but it also sets some weird expectations on how a remodeling project goes. They don't know what they don't know. And a huge part of your role is to educate them, is to teach them on how the remodeling process works. I'm currently staring at my camera, very focused like. I don't know if that is more effective. You guys give me some feedback on that. I don't know if that's more effective for me to stare right at that. My dad was interested in watching one of my podcasts recently, and I sent him a link. It was very sweet of him to ask, and yeah, and he did. I think he only watched like 10 minutes, but that's all right. And I said, so what'd you think? And he goes, well, it's kind of fun that you bounce back and forth between things. He said, but your eyes are all over the place. Like you're just looking over. And I'm like, oh, that's some good feedback, Pops. So maybe I'll try to stare at the camera a little bit more and give me some feedback. Does that bother you or not? Okay. She's written a lot on shame / letting go of shame. Very interesting. Heather says she's wonderful. Definitely listen to Dare to Lead podcast. Okay, cool. Brenny, is it Brenny? Is it Bren? Is awesome. Courage is contagious. Okay, cool. I will go back to this comment though. That might be Bailey. Is that you? Bailey, go to StreamYard.com/Facebook so I can see if anybody should have that down. It should be you. One interesting thing on this topic of shame, I have written, if you're on my personal Facebook page, since July 18th of last year, I have written a daily devotional, mostly focused at my Christian brothers and sisters and myself. And so I'm almost 6 months of daily posts. And what's been interesting is when I touch on the topic of shame, I've done it a couple times. It's touching on something that strikes deep for a lot of people. It's not something that I have experienced personally too much. But it's something that a lot of you, a lot of us, a lot of people in the church, a lot of people outside the church have experienced this topic of shame. So it's interesting that it's something that she talks about, that it's up there. And it's something that, if that's something that's a burden of yours, that's something that you're carrying heavily from previous times or currently now or from childhood. Wow, is it something that it strikes deep and might be something to just be encouraged, whether it's even looking up Bren or Brenny Brown's podcast on it, reading a book on that. It's definitely something that you could work on. Okay, cool. Brenny rhymes with Rennie. Or is that Renee? Some people say that's Renee. Okay. All right. We're cruising along here now. And we are going to move on to the next thing, which is, hey, what book are you reading right now, folks? What's the book you're reading right now? I got a Amazon Kindle for Christmas, and I used to have one. I lost it like years ago, but it's one of those that is just like the backlit. It's just for reading. It's not like a full out tablet. Like literally, you can click the book, you swipe it. It kind of looks like paper, but I got the backlit version. And I have done more reading in the first 14 days of January than I had the previous 2 months, I'd say. That'd be pretty easy to do. And so what book are you reading? What book are you reading? Right now for me on the business side, I'm reading StoryBrand. I've dabbled with that. I've heard a lot of people, clients of mine, colleagues of mine, talk very beautifully about how strong of a structure it is and a process it is. And I thought, you know what? I need to learn more about that. So that's the book that I'm reading. I wonder what book y'all are reading. Renee. Okay, good. Brene. So is it Brene? Rhymes with Renee, and it's Brene. So it's Brene Brown. I think I nailed it. Nailed it. Have you guys seen that show called Nailed It? It's hilarious. It's where they take like a professional baker who makes this illustrious, beautiful, intricate cake, and then they take non-bakers. They take like me, and they'd say, all right, the name of the game is you have 4 hours to recreate that. And then they create it, and then they have it like covered up, and they unveil it, and they have like a picture that shows the professional one versus the amateur. And the amateur, when he unveils it, goes, nailed it. And it's comical. It's very fun. I am reading a British novel. Oh, there we go. And giftology. I do assume that is Bailey. Those two things seem correct. The Book of Joy. Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu, and Douglas Abrams. Excellent. Iron Lake, Michael says. I'm rereading Never Split the Difference. I've been recommended that before. Kind of related to negotiating and what an interesting skill to improve as a remodeler, how you negotiate. Win the Day by Mark Batterson. Hi, Laurel. And Chris Voss. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, you guys are fun. One little quick note, if I may. I'm doing a webinar, 2 of them, on January 21st and January 28th. It has been like a year since I've done just a proper webinar to my audience and to my list. And I have this interesting kind of new structure that I'm working on called a success path. And the title of these webinars, it's the same one both days, so pick one that works for you. A clear success path for your #1 marketing priority. This phrase success path, I'm going to give it kind of a go during these 2 webinars, might be a phrase that you start to hear quite often from me. This idea that there's different parts of our business where it's kind of a success path, where you're starting and what you're thinking, feeling, and doing there, and then getting really clear with each different step to get to the end of that path where you've got it implemented, where you're really clear on what you're thinking, feeling, and doing, and you've executed it. Anytime we're trying to make progress to go from one place to another place, there's steps in between. And one thing I'm working on in my coaching and in my work that I'm doing is getting much more clear with what steps are needing to be done and worked on in order to get the result you're looking for. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to focus that particular success path on a part of our marketing efforts. And I'd love for you to join me. I bet you, since Bailey is such a wonderful employee extraordinaire, she is going to put in the comments of this show a link to where you can register for that. Good. Next thing I wanted to share, and I just saw Laurel's name pop up there. This is something I have recently had her do in some of the one-on-one coaching we've been working on, is to get really clear with this month, next month, and the following month. This month, next month, and the following month. If I may be so bold as to share my screen, we'll do this kind of briefly and quickly. The concept behind this is if you take the jobs that the projects that you have, whoops, shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. There we go. If you take the jobs that you have sold, don't give me the ones that you think you're going to sell. Give me the ones that have signed contracts. And if you added those up, put them in a little spreadsheet, I bet you Bailey's going to put a link to this blog post in the comments as well. But if you add those up and then you just think through, you look at your schedule and you think through it, what projects are coming up this month? In this case, it would be January. What about next month? And what about the following month? So for example, if you have a $50,000 sale and you figure about 25,000 of that, about half of that, we're going to be producing and collecting this month. And then the other half next month. If you go through and do that for all of the projects you have sold, you're going to have kind of a tally, a number down at the bottom. So for example, if your sales goal this year was $900,000 a year, that's $75,000 a month in remodeling sales and in particular production. So when you look at this and you tally it up, you see this month they have $75,000 that are sold. That's sold. We're in good shape there. That's good. Next month we're at 85,000. We're expecting produced income of 85,000. That's putting us ahead of things. And then we look at the following month and it's 30,000. That's not necessarily making me shiver in my boots too much, but it's definitely getting my attention. I still have some things to sell and fill for that following month. I usually like to look at this just in kind of a 3-month span, and it's just a quick gut check on how are we doing when we look at our schedule of the projects that we have coming up and kind of think through what kind of income that's going to bring in. And we compare it to about what we need to be doing each month. How close are we? Are we in good shape? It's a very nice gut check, checkpoints that kind of keeps some of these bigger numbers and some of that balancing act that you guys are all doing in sales and production, and keeps it in check. It's been a helpful little tool. So I wanted to just share that with you in hopes that maybe it sparks one of you to giving that a shot or thinking about that. All right. Cool. We are a couple minutes away from the conclusion of this rousing rendition of the Remodeler Show. Does anybody have ask Kyle anything, any questions that you might have? Wouldn't mind taking a quick question or two. And then I'll finish with this as well. This is something from a guy named Larry Janeski. I don't know his work too much. I think he does a decent amount with like more skilled trade contractors, plumbers, heating, cooling, roofing. I think he has like a basement systems type thing, but he's a thought leader. And one of my clients really enjoys his work and sent me a link to his stuff a couple years ago. And I get a daily, quick, brief email from him every morning. So this is the segment of Remodelers on the Rise that says, from the interwebs. And I'm just going to read this quick thing that he shared because I thought it was interesting and worthy of your consideration. The title of it says, Silent Consent. Silent consent is when a behavior occurs among your team and you let it continue without comment, even if the behavior is something that makes you uncomfortable. A manager, you know what I just did there? I gave you the gift of a pause. I let you really hear that last sentence. I let that penetrate and soak in a little bit. A pause is a gift to the person you're talking to. Work on that in your sales process, in your managing. Okay, but I digress. The next part of this says, a manager or leader who wants to be liked or one who is not good with conflict is going to struggle by offering silent consent when they really should speak up and call out what is not acceptable. Silent consent is the same as an audible yes. It's dangerous and can ultimately lead to your demise as a leader and the destruction of your team. Speak up. Call bad behavior and bad practice what it is. This is very relevant as you are growing as a leader and manager of your team, your in-house team, your office team, your trade partners in the field, right? This concept of silent, as a leader, you should probably step in, call that bad behavior out, deal with it, deal with any conflict that causes. That's what good leaders do. So I really like that when I saw that come through. And I can't imagine that also has applicability to anything else going on in our world. But I bet you it does. Just in our day-to-day lives, that coming up. Michael says timely. What's the nice gift? Oh, yes, the pause. The pause is a nice gift. Excellent. Cool. There's a link to that. Excellent. All right. So we touched on a variety of topics. I had fun because you guys were active in there. We had a nice little group of people here. And you can also download the spreadsheet in the Remodelers Vault. If you go to Remodelers with an S, Vault, VAULT.com, there's like 50 templates in there that are just really good. And because I'm your buddy, they're free. Well, Kyle, how do you support your family when you just do this show for free and you do this Remodelers Vault for free? I don't know, people. I'm figuring it out. You should give me $1 though and sign up at remodelersautopilot.com. Read that last line again. That last line, speak up, call bad behavior and bad practice what it is. There you go. Somebody asked me to read that last line. I'm here to serve you. I read that last line, and now we are all going to get on with our day, hopefully inspired, hopefully with some key takeaways, and I'll see you again for the next episode of the Remodelers on the Rise live show next Tuesday. Peace out.